My name is Sarah Turner, and I'm 28 years old. As I stare at my phone reading the text message from my father, I can feel my blood boiling and tears threatening to spill. $7,000. My hard-earned savings for graduate school, gone. Stolen by my own family for a vacation they deliberately excluded me from. My grandfather places his weathered hand on my shoulder, his eyes reflecting a determination I've never seen before. They've gone too far this time. Before I continue this story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted. Now let me tell you how my family's betrayal led to the most unexpected Thanksgiving lesson of my life. The airport was bustling with holiday travelers as I wheeled my suitcase through the terminal. After 2 years away in Seattle working as an elementary school teacher, I was finally heading home to Rochester for Thanksgiving. The excitement bubbling inside me was almost overwhelming. 2 whole years of missing my family's traditions. Mum's famous apple pie, Dad's terrible jokes at the dinner table, my younger sister Megan's latest drama, and most of all, my grandfather's wise presence. I boarded the plane with a smile settling into my seat by the window. The woman next to me noticed my excitement and asked if I was heading home for the holidays. We chatted briefly about family traditions, and I proudly showed her the photo of my family from Christmas 2 years ago, the last time we were all together. "You must be very close," she commented. "We are," I replied confidently. "Family is everything to us." If only I had known how wrong I was. The irony of that statement would haunt me just hours later. During the flight, I scrolled through my text messages with my parents from the past few weeks. Mum had seemed strangely vague about Thanksgiving plans, just saying they were looking forward to the holiday, without specific mentions of who would be at dinner. Dad had barely texted at all, which wasn't entirely unusual, but in retrospect was part of a pattern I should have noticed. After landing, I called my dad's cell while waiting for my luggage. No answer. I tried my mum next, then my sister. Nothing. I assumed they were busy preparing for my arrival, maybe driving to pick me up. I finally decided to take a taxi home. As we drove through the familiar neighborhoods decorated with autumn wreaths and pumpkins, my excitement grew. The driver pulled up to our 2-story colonial house, the one I'd grown up in. The porch light was on, but the rest of the house seemed strangely dark for 5 p.m. on Thanksgiving Eve. I paid the driver, grabbed my luggage, and walked up the path to the front door. Using my old key, I unlocked it and stepped inside. "Hello, Mom, Dad, I'm home." My voice echoed in the seemingly empty house. The silence that greeted me was unsettling. No delicious smells from the kitchen, no TV sports commentary from the living room, no music from Megan's bedroom. Just silence. I wandered through the downstairs, finding nothing but spotlessly clean rooms that looked barely lived in. It was as though the house had been prepared for a showing, not for a family holiday. That's when I heard shuffling footsteps from upstairs, followed by my grandfather's voice. "Sarah, is that you, sweetheart?" "Grandpa," I called back, relief washing over me. He appeared at the top of the stairs, his tall frame slightly stooped with age, but his blue eyes as sharp as ever. Grandpa William, my father's father, had moved in with us 5 years ago after Grandma passed away. "Where is everyone?" I asked as he made his way down to hug me. The hesitation in his embrace told me something was wrong before he even spoke. "Let's sit down, Sarah," he said, guiding me to the living room sofa. "There's something you need to know." Grandpa William's weathered hands trembled slightly as he handed me a glass of water. His blue eyes, usually twinkling with mischief, were clouded with what looked like anger and disappointment. I took the glass but couldn't drink, a knot of dread forming in my stomach. "Where's everyone? Grandpa, Mom, Dad, and Megan should be here preparing for tomorrow, right?" I asked, still hoping for a simple explanation, like they were out shopping for last-minute ingredients. Grandpa sat beside me, sighing deeply. "They're not here, Sarah, and they won't be here tomorrow either." I laughed nervously. "What do you mean it's Thanksgiving? We always spend it together." "Not this year." His voice was gentle but firm. "They left yesterday." "Guest, left where?" Just then, my phone vibrated with a text notification. I glanced down to see my father's name on the screen. Relieved, I opened the message, expecting an explanation for their absence. The words on the screen made my heart stop. "Hey kiddo, sorry about the last-minute change. We decided to use your $7,000 from your account for a family vacation to Cancun. Megan really wanted beach time. Have fun with Grandpa, happy Thanksgiving." I stared at the phone in disbelief, reading and rereading the message. My savings. The money I'd been carefully putting aside for 2 years to pay for my master's degree in education. the money in my account that my parents still had access to because we'd set it up when I was 16 and I'd never changed the permissions. "This can't be real," I whispered, showing Grandpa the text. His face darkened with anger. "Oh, it's real all right. Your father called me 2 days ago to explain. Again, said they all needed a break and deserved a nice vacation. But that was my graduate school money." My voice cracked. "I was going to use it next fall." "I know, sweetheart. I tried to talk some sense into him, but your dad just said you were always good at saving and could earn it back. Said you wouldn't mind." Tears of shock and betrayal welled in my eyes. "Wouldn't mind it took me 2 years of tutoring after school and weekends to save that money. There's more," Grandpa said grimly. "They took Megan's friend Ashley with them instead of you. Said it would be more fun for Megan to have someone her age along." The betrayal cut deeper. Not only had they stolen my money, but they had replaced me with my sister's friend. I felt physically ill. "Why would they do this to me? What did I do wrong?" I asked, tears now flowing freely. Grandpa pulled me into a hug. "You didn't do anything wrong, Sarah. This isn't about you. It's about them and their selfishness. Your parents have changed since you've been gone. Your father got that promotion last year and suddenly they're all about appearances and experiences. Your mum quit her nursing job and just shops all day. And Megan, well, she's turning into a spoiled brat if I'm being honest." I wiped my tears away, anger beginning to replace the hurt. "So they just took my money, just like that. Is that even legal?" "Technically, since your name is on the account with theirs, yes. Morally, absolutely not." Grandpa's jaw was set in a hard line I'd rarely seen. "But don't you worry, this isn't over. What can we even do? They're already gone with my money." Grandpa's eyes took on a determined gleam that made him look years younger. "Trust me, they won't like what happens when I'm done. Your grandmother and I didn't raise your father to be this kind of man." I looked at this man who had always been the moral compass of our family, suddenly curious about what he had in mind. "What are you thinking, Grandpa?" He patted my hand. "First we're going to have our own Thanksgiving tomorrow, and then we're going to make sure justice is served. Are you with me?" "No." Despite my heartbreak, I felt a spark of hope. "I'm with you." "Good girl. Now let's see what we've got in the fridge for tomorrow." As we walked to the kitchen, I checked my phone again. There was another message, this time from my mother. "Sweetie, I know you're probably upset, but you've always been so responsible. We really needed this vacation as a family. We'll make it up to you at Christmas. Love you." I showed Grandpa the message, my hands shaking with anger. "The nerve," he muttered. "Don't respond yet. Let them enjoy their stolen vacation for now. They'll face the music soon enough." I nodded, fighting back fresh tears. "What are we going to do for dinner tomorrow?" Grandpa smiled, a hint of his old mischief returning. "Your grandmother's recipes are in that box in the pantry. Between the two of us, we'll manage. And Sarah, yes, I'm glad you're home even if the circumstances are terrible. I've missed you." For the first time since arriving, I felt a genuine smile cross my face. "I've missed you too, Grandpa." The morning sun filtered through the kitchen curtains as I stirred pancake batter, trying to focus on the task rather than the hollow feeling in my chest. Thanksgiving Day had arrived, but instead of the bustling family kitchen, I'd imagined it was just Grandpa and me. He sat at the table reading glasses perched on his nose, examining what looked like legal documents. "What are those?" I asked, pouring batter onto the griddle. Grandpa glanced up, a small smile playing on his lips. "Just some papers I've been saving for a rainy day, and I'd say it's pouring now, wouldn't you?" I flipped a pancake, nodding absently. My phone had remained silent since my mother's message yesterday. Part of me wanted to call and scream at them, demand they return my money and come home immediately. But another part, the part that still felt like a wounded child, couldn't bear to hear their excuses. "Did you sleep at all?" Grandpa asked, noticing the dark circles under my eyes. "Not really," I admitted. I kept checking my bank account, hoping it was all a mistake. "And the money's definitely gone. All $7,000 transferred out 3 days ago." My voice cracked slightly. 2 years of saving gone in an instant. Grandpa's expression hardened. "Your father always did act impulsively when it came to money. Your grandmother and I tried to teach him better." I placed a stack of pancakes in front of him. "What were my parents like when they were younger? Were they always this selfish?" Grandpa poured maple syrup thoughtfully. "Your father was always ambitious, and your mother loved nice things. But no, they weren't always like this. The change really started after your father got that promotion to regional manager last year. Suddenly, it was all about keeping up with his co-workers, impressing the right people. And Megan, your sister is 16 and impressionable. She sees your parents spending money like water, so naturally she thinks that's normal. He took a bite of pancake. These are good, by the way. Thanks. I sat down with my own plate but couldn't bring myself to eat. I just don't understand how they could do this to me. We were always so close. People change Sarah. Money changes them even more. Grandpa wiped his mouth with a napkin. After breakfast, I want to show you something in the garage. Curious, I forced down a few bites of food before following him outside. The November air was crisp, and I hugged my sweater around me as Grandpa unlocked the side door to the garage. Inside, beneath a tarp in the corner, was a gleaming vintage Mustang I'd never seen before. Whose car is that? I asked, running my hand along the polished red surface. Mine. Grandpa's eyes twinkled. Or rather, it was your grandmother's, a 1965 Ford Mustang convertible. I restored it after she passed, but your parents don't know about it. I keep it covered and they never come in here anyway. It's beautiful, I whispered, admiring the classic lines. But why are you showing me this now? Because it's worth about $80,000 to the right collector. His statement hung in the air between us. And I'm going to sell it. Grandpa, no. This is your connection to Grandma. You can't sell it. He shook his head firmly. Sarah, listen to me. I'm 83 years old. I don't need this car anymore. And Margaret would be furious if she knew I was holding on to metal and rubber while her granddaughter's future was at stake. Tears welled in my eyes. I can't let you do this. You can and you will. His voice was gentle but firm. I've already called my friend at the classic car dealership. He's coming by this afternoon to look at it. I was speechless, overwhelmed by his generosity. But that's not all, he continued. Remember those papers I was looking at your grandmother and I set up a trust years ago? Your father doesn't know about it because, frankly, we were concerned about his financial decisions even then. There's enough in there to pay for your master's degree and then some. But why didn't you ever mention this before? Because money like that can change a person's path. We wanted you kids to learn the value of hard work first. He placed a hand on my shoulder. You've more than proven yourself, Sarah. You worked hard, saved your money, pursued a career helping children. We couldn't be prouder. And my parents and Megan, do they have trusts too? Grandpa's expression darkened. They do, but after what they've done, I'm making some changes. A mix of emotions swirled through me, gratitude, relief, but also a lingering sense of betrayal. I still can't believe they do this. Well, believe it. And it's time we started dealing with it. Grandpa covered the car again. Now let's go inside and start preparing our Thanksgiving dinner. I found your grandmother's recipes for her famous cornbread stuffing and cranberry relish. As we walked back to the house, my phone chimed with a notification. It was an Instagram post from Megan, a selfie of her, my parents and her friend Ashley on a white sand beach, cocktails in hand. The caption read, "Best Thanksgiving ever, #blessed, family time." I showed it to Grandpa, my hands shaking with anger. He studied the image, his mouth set in a grim line. Enjoying their stolen vacation, I see. Well, let them. The real world will be waiting when they get back. We spent the rest of the morning preparing a simple but meaningful Thanksgiving meal. While peeling potatoes, I found myself telling Grandpa about my students in Seattle, my small apartment overlooking a community garden, my dreams of becoming a curriculum specialist after getting my master's. You know, Grandpa said as he chopped celery, your grandmother was a teacher too before we had your father. She always said it was the most important job in the world. I didn't know that. Dad never mentioned it. There's a lot your father chooses not to remember about where he came from. Grandpa's voice held a note of sadness, but that's going to change very soon. As we worked, I couldn't help wondering what Grandpa had planned. There was a quiet determination in his movements, a calculated gleam in his eye that told me this was more than just talk. William Turner had a plan, and for the first time since reading my father's text, I felt a spark of hope that justice might actually be possible. The table was set with Grandma's antique china 2 places instead of the usual 5. Our modest feast steamed on the platters, a small roasted chicken instead of turkey, mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, cranberry relish, and cornbread stuffing made from Grandma's recipe. It wasn't the elaborate Thanksgiving I'd expected, but as Grandpa and I sat down, I felt a strange sense of peace. It's not our usual spread, Grandpa said apologetically. It's perfect, I assured him, surprised to realize I meant it. Grandpa reached for my hand across the table. I'd like to say grace if that's all right with you. I nodded, bowing my head. Dear Lord, we thank you for this food and for bringing Sarah home safely. We're grateful for each other's company on this day of thanks. We ask for guidance as we face the challenges before us, and we pray for those who have lost their way. Help them find their moral compass again. Amen. Amen. I echoed, knowing exactly who he was referring to. We began to eat, the silence comfortable between us. Halfway through the meal, Grandpa cleared his throat. I made some calls this morning, he said, setting down his fork. I spoke with my attorney, George Harrington. We've been friends for over 50 years. About the trust, I asked. Partly, but also about your money. His blue eyes were serious. What your parents did may have been legally permissible because of the joint account, but it was essentially theft. George agrees. I pushed my food around my plate. What can we even do about it? They're in another country spending it as we speak. Oh, we can do plenty, Grandpa assured me. For starters, I've instructed George to send a formal legal letter to your parents demanding repayment of the funds within 30 days. My eyes widened. You're suing them. Not yet, but I'm establishing a paper trail. Grandpa took a sip of water. I also called the bank this morning. Since I'm still on your father's accounts as a co-signer from years ago, I was able to get some information. Did you know your parents have taken out a second mortgage on this house? This was news to me. No, why would they need to do that? To fund their new lifestyle, I suspect. Designer clothes for your mother, that boat your father bought last summer, Megan's expensive hobbies. Grandpa shook his head disapprovingly. They're living well beyond their means, Sarah. This vacation is just the latest example. So they're in financial trouble. The thought was hard to believe. My parents had always been so responsible when I was growing up. Not yet, but they're heading that way, and that's where my plan comes in. Grandpa leaned forward. Your grandmother and I own this house, not your parents. This revelation stunned me. What? But they've lived here for over 20 years. Yes, they have. When your father and mother got married, they couldn't afford a house. So your grandmother and I bought this one and allowed them to live here, with the understanding that they would eventually buy it from us. We even set up a rent-to-own agreement. Grandpa's expression was grim. But your father never followed through on the purchase. He always had excuses for why it wasn't a good time. So legally, this is still your house. Exactly. And now I'm exercising my right as the owner to make some changes. A knock at the front door interrupted our conversation. Grandpa smiled knowingly. That would be James from the classic car dealership, he said, rising from his chair. Would you like to join us? I followed Grandpa to the garage where a well-dressed older gentleman was admiring the Mustang, which Grandpa had uncovered. James, this is my granddaughter, Sarah. Grandpa introduced us. Sarah James has been dealing in classic cars for over 40 years. We shook hands and James turned back to the Mustang with appreciation. William, you've done an incredible job with the restoration. Everything's original, I see. Down to the last bolt, Grandpa confirmed proudly. Margaret loved this car. Bought it brand new in '65. James circled the vehicle slowly. Well, the market for these is very strong right now, especially for one with documented original ownership and this level of restoration. He named a figure that made my jaw drop. I can have a cashier's check to you by tomorrow. Grandpa looked at me questioningly. I swallowed hard, still uncomfortable with him selling such a precious memento, but nodded my agreement. We have a deal, Grandpa told James, shaking his hand. After James left, promising to return the next day with payment and transport for the car, Grandpa and I returned to our meal. That's more than enough to replace your savings, I pointed out. With plenty left over, Grandpa agreed. But that's just phase 1 of the plan. There's more? Grandpa smiled enigmatically. By the time your parents return from their stolen vacation, things around here are going to be very different. Now shall we have some of that pumpkin pie you baked? As we finished our dinner, I felt something shifting inside me. The hurt and betrayal were still there, but alongside them grew a new emotion, determination. Whatever Grandpa was planning, I was fully on board. My parents and sister had made their choice, and now they would face the consequences. After dinner, while washing dishes, I finally worked up the courage to respond to my parents' texts with a simple message. Enjoying Thanksgiving with Grandpa. We have a lot to discuss when you return. Within minutes, my phone buzzed with a response from my mother. Glad you two are having fun. Don't be mad, honey. Everyone deserves a special vacation sometimes. The casualness of her response, the complete lack of remorse or understanding of what they'd done, reinforced my resolve. I showed it to Grandpa. Let them think everything's fine, but, he advised, The element of surprise is on our side. That night, as I lay in my childhood bedroom, surrounded by memories, I made a decision. Whatever happened with my family, whatever Grandpa's plan entailed, I would emerge from this stronger. My parents had shown their true colours, and while it hurt deeply, it was also strangely liberating. For the first time in my life, I was seeing them clearly, without the filter of childhood admiration. With that clarity came power, and I intended to use it. Over the next few days, Grandpa and I set his plan in motion. The morning after Thanksgiving, James returned with a cashier's check for the Mustang, which Grandpa immediately deposited into a new account in my name only. "First step complete," he said as we left the bank. "Your graduate school funds are secured. Now for Phase 2. Phase 2, as it turned out, involved a moving company. That afternoon, a team of workers arrived at the house with boxes and packing materials. "What exactly are we doing?" I asked Grandpa as the movers waited for instructions. "We're relocating your parents' belongings to storage," he replied calmly. "Not everything, just their personal items. The furniture stays." My eyes widened. "You're packing up their stuff? Won't they be furious?" "Undoubtedly." Grandpa didn't seem concerned. "But as I told you, this is legally my house. I've allowed them to live here for years, but their recent behavior has violated our family trust. I'm exercising my right to reclaim my property." It felt drastic, but after what they'd done, I couldn't find it in myself to argue. Besides, I trusted Grandpa's judgment. He wasn't a vindictive man. There had to be method to what we were doing. I helped direct the movers, showing them which bedrooms belonged to my parents and Megan. We carefully packed clothing, personal electronics, jewelry, and other belongings. Family photos were left on the walls and shared spaces remained untouched. "What about my room?" I asked, noticing the movers hadn't entered it. "Your room stays as is," Grandpa confirmed. "You're welcome here any time." By evening, the movers had filled their truck with dozens of boxes and departed for the storage facility, where everything would be securely held until my parents returned. "So they'll come home to find their belongings gone," I clarified, still trying to wrap my head around the boldness of this move. "Not gone relocated," Grandpa corrected, "and that's not all they'll find different." The next day, Saturday, Grandpa's attorney, George, arrived with a thick folder of documents. The three of us sat at the dining room table as he explained what Grandpa had set in motion. "I've drawn up formal eviction papers," George explained, showing me the legal documents. "As the rightful owner of this property, your grandfather is giving your parents 30 days to vacate. You're evicting them." The magnitude of Grandpa's plan was becoming clear. "They need a wake-up call," Grandpa said firmly. "This house has been a safety net that's enabled their irresponsible behaviour. It's time they stood on their own feet." George continued, "I've also prepared a demand letter for the return of your $7,000 with interest. If they don't comply, we'll file a civil lawsuit." "Can we do that, even though it was a joint account?" I asked. "The joint account complicates things," George admitted. "But we have text evidence that they took money you had specifically saved for education without your consent. A judge would likely be sympathetic, especially given the circumstances." "And what about the trust you mentioned?" I turned to Grandpa. Grandpa nodded to George, who pulled out another document. "I've amended the terms of the family trust," Grandpa explained. "Your educational expenses will be fully covered, as Margaret and I always intended. But I've added conditions to your parents' and sisters' portions." George elaborated. "Your parents and sister will still receive their inheritances, but with stipulations. Your father must attend financial responsibility counselling, your mother must return to work or meaningful volunteer service, and Megan must maintain a certain GPA and perform community service hours. If they refuse these conditions, then their portions will be donated to educational charities," Grandpa stated firmly. "I won't fund the lifestyle they've developed." I sat back, overwhelmed by the comprehensiveness of Grandpa's response. "Do you think this will actually change them?" Grandpa's eyes were sad but determined. "I hope so, Sarah. I truly do. Your father was raised with better values than this." Somewhere along the way, he lost sight of what truly matters. On Sunday day, 3 of our preparations, we met with a locksmith who changed all the locks on the house. Grandpa also had a security system installed with cameras at the entrances. "Is all this really necessary?" I asked as the technician finished programming the system. "We need to control who enters the house and when." Grandpa explained, "When they return, we'll meet them here, but on our terms." That evening, while browsing social media, I came across more photos from their vacation. My father posing on a golf course, my mother and Megan shopping in designer stores, all of them at an expensive restaurant. Each image twisted the knife of betrayal a little deeper. They don't even miss us, I said to Grandpa, showing him the latest pictures. They will, he replied simply. Very soon. On Monday, 4 days after Thanksgiving, Grandpa received a call from the bank. After a brief conversation, he hung up with a satisfied expression. Your father just attempted to make a large transfer from his home equity line of credit, he informed me. The bank declined it per my instructions. You froze their credit line. I did. As co-owner of this property, I have that right. They've already borrowed enough against a house they don't own. I shook my head in disbelief. He's going to be furious. Good. Maybe anger will finally make him face reality. Sure enough, within minutes, Grandpa's phone rang again. This time it was my father. Grandpa put the call on speaker. Dad, what the hell is going on? My father's voice was tense with barely controlled anger. The bank says you've put a freeze on my equity line. That's correct, Robert, Grandpa replied calmly. We have some matters to discuss when you return. Spike, what matters? What are you talking about? I need that money for. For what exactly? Another extravagant purchase. You've already stolen $7,000 from your daughter. Isn't that enough? There was a moment of stunned silence before my father sputtered. That money that wasn't stealing, we're on the same account. Call it what you will. Sarah worked for 2 years to save that money for her education, and you took it without permission for a vacation. In my book, and I suspect in any reasonable person's, that's theft. Put Sarah on the phone, my father demanded. I want to talk to her. Grandpa looked at me questioningly. I nodded and took the phone. I'm here, Dad. Sarah, honey, you're blowing this out of proportion. It was just a loan. We'll pay you back eventually. The casualness of his tone, the lack of remorse strengthened my resolve. When exactly were you planning to replace my graduate school money? Well, I don't know, sometime in the next year or so. Look, we needed a break and Megan really wanted this trip. So Megan's vacation was more important than my education, and you couldn't even be bothered to include me in this family trip. You're an adult, Sarah. You have your own life in Seattle. Megan's still a teenager, she needs family time. Apparently with her friend Ashley instead of me. I couldn't keep the hurt from my voice. That was Megan's choice. Look, we'll be home in 2 days. We can sort this all out then. Yes, we certainly will. I hung up, hands shaking with emotion. Grandpa placed a supportive hand on my shoulder. You did well. Now they know something's happening, but not what. The element of surprise is still partially on our side. That night I received texts from both my mother and Megan, clearly sent at my father's urging. Mom, sweetie, please don't be upset. We'll figure out the money situation when we get home. Love you. Megan? Hey sis, sorry you're mad about the vacation, but it's not a big deal, right? You have a job and stuff. Their messages only reinforced how disconnected they'd become from reality and from me. I showed them to Grandpa without responding. Let them stew, he advised. They'll be home tomorrow night. That's when the real conversation begins. As I went to bed that night, 5 days after discovering my family's betrayal, I felt strangely calm. The hurt remained, but it was tempered by a sense of purpose. With Grandpa's help, I was standing up for myself in a way I never had before. Whatever happened when my family returned, I knew I would emerge stronger. The house was quiet as Grandpa and I waited in the living room on Tuesday evening. We'd received a text from my father saying they'd landed and were on their way home from the airport. Grandpa sat calmly in his armchair, looking remarkably composed for someone about to confront his son over a serious betrayal. I, on the other hand, couldn't stop fidgeting my stomach in knots. Remember, Grandpa said, noticing my nervousness, we have truth and right on our side. Stay calm, speak clearly, and don't let them deflect or minimize what they've done. I nodded, taking a deep breath. We'd spent the past 5 days preparing for this moment, but now that it was here, I felt a rush of conflicting emotions. Part of me wanted reconciliation, while another part demanded justice. The sound of a car pulling into the driveway made my heart race. Headlights swept across the living room window, then went dark. Car doors slammed, followed by the sound of luggage being removed from the trunk. Voices drifted through the evening air, my father's deeper tones, my mother's lighter ones, and Megan's teenage chatter. They sound happy, I observed bitterly. Probably had a wonderful time spending my money. That happiness is about to end, Grandpa said quietly. We heard footsteps on the porch, then the rattle of a key in the lock, except, of course, the locks had been changed. There was a moment of confusion, then more forceful attempts to open the door. Finally, the doorbell rang. Grandpa nodded to me, and I stood to answer it, my legs feeling surprisingly steady beneath me. I opened the door to find my family standing on the porch, tanned from their Mexican vacation, surrounded by expensive luggage. Their expressions shifted rapidly from confusion to surprise, at seeing me to a dawning realization that something was very wrong. Sarah. My mother stepped forward to hug me, but I stepped back, keeping the door only partially open. What's going on? Why doesn't our key work? We need to talk, I said evenly. All of us. Talk about what? And why are the locks changed? My father pushed forward, his face flushed with irritation. This is ridiculous. Let us in our own house. It's not your house, I replied. It's Grandpa's. And yes, we've changed the locks. What? My father's voice rose. Sarah, stop this nonsense immediately. It's not nonsense, Robert, Grandpa called from inside. You'd better come in. We have much to discuss. I stepped aside, allowing them to enter, but making no move to help with their luggage. They filed in, my father red, faced with anger, my mother looking bewildered, and Megan sulking behind them. They stopped short when they saw Grandpa sitting calmly in his armchair, a folder of documents on the coffee table before him. Dad, what the hell is going on? My father demanded. That's what I'd like to know, Grandpa replied coolly. I'd like to know when my son became the kind of man who would steal from his own daughter. I didn't steal anything. My father's voice was defensive. It was a loan. A loan requires prior agreement from both parties, I interjected, finding my voice stronger than expected. You took my graduate school savings. Without asking for a vacation you deliberately excluded me from. My mother stepped forward, her expression pleading. Sarah, honey, we were going to pay you back. We just needed a break, and the deal on this resort package was too good to pass up. A break from what exactly? I asked. From your shopping sprees, from your golf games, from your responsibilities. Don't talk to your mother that way, my father snapped. Grandpa raised a hand. Let's all sit down and discuss this civilly. Robert, Helen, Megan, please take a seat. Reluctantly, they sat on the sofa, still in their travel clothes. I noticed Megan texting frantically under the coffee table. Put the phone away, Megan, Grandpa instructed firmly. This is a family discussion. With an exaggerated sigh, she complied. Now, Grandpa continued, there have been some changes made in your absence. First and foremost, Sarah's money has been replaced. I sold my Mustang to ensure her education will not be affected by your theft. You sold Mum's car? My father looked genuinely shocked. But you loved that car. I loved it, yes, but I love my granddaughter more. And unlike you, I understand the value of her education and future. My mother reached for my hand across the coffee table. Sarah, we really are sorry if we hurt you. We just didn't think it was a big deal. You've always been so responsible with money. I pulled my hand away. That's exactly the point, Mom. I was responsible. I worked hard for that money tutoring evenings and weekends for 2 years. And you took it without asking for a vacation you didn't even invite me to. We didn't think you'd want to come, my father argued. You're always talking about how busy you are with your teaching job. So you decided for me and invited Megan's friend instead. Megan finally spoke up. Ashley's my best friend. It would have been boring without her. Enough excuses, Grandpa interrupted. The fact is, you took money that wasn't yours to take, but that's just the beginning of our concerns. He reached for the folder on the coffee table and removed several documents. Robert, did you know that you've never completed the purchase of this house, despite living here for over 20 years? My father shifted uncomfortably. We've been making payments. Irregular payments at best, Grandpa corrected, and nowhere near the agreed-upon amount. This house legally belongs to me and your mother's estate. So what are you saying? My father's voice had an edge of panic now. I'm saying that as the legal owner, I've made some decisions. Grandpa handed him the first document. This is a formal eviction notice. You have 30 days to find new accommodation. You're evicting us! My mother's voice rose in disbelief. Your own family. I'm enforcing consequences for irresponsible behavior, Grandpa corrected. Something I should have done years ago. My father was reading the document, his face growing paler. This can't be legal? It's perfectly legal, Grandpa assured him. George confirmed it. This is my property and I'm reclaiming it. Where are our things? Megan suddenly asked, looking around as if just noticing the house seemed different. In secure storage, I replied. All your personal belongings have been carefully packed and stored until you find a new residence. You went through our stuff, Megan's voice rose indignantly. We respected your privacy, Grandpa assured her. But yes, we packed your belongings. This is insane, my father muttered, running a hand through his hair. Where are we supposed to go? That's for you to figure out, Grandpa replied evenly. You have a good job, Robert. You've simply been living beyond your means. It's time to right-size your lifestyle. My mother began to cry softly. I can't believe this is happening, all because of one vacation. It's not about one vacation, I said firmly. It's about a pattern of behavior. Taking my money was just the final straw. Grandpa handed my father another document. This is a formal demand for repayment of Sarah's $7,000 plus interest. If you don't comply within 30 days, we'll file a civil lawsuit. You would sue your own son. My father looked genuinely shocked. I would hold my son accountable for his actions, Grandpa corrected. Something I should have done long ago. My father stood up abruptly. This is ridiculous. I'm going to call a lawyer. Feel free, Grandpa replied calmly. But be aware that I've also made changes to the family trust. Your inheritance and Megan's are now conditional upon behavior changes. That stopped my father in his tracks. What kind of changes? You'll need to attend financial responsibility counselling. Helen needs to return to work or meaningful volunteer service. And Megan must maintain a 3.0 GPA and perform community service. That's not fair, Megan protested. I didn't do anything. You participated in using stolen money, I reminded her. And from your texts, you clearly don't see anything wrong with that. My mother's tears had turned to quiet sobs. Where will we stay tonight? We can't just find a place immediately. Grandpa's expression softened slightly. You can stay here tonight. There are clean sheets on your beds, but tomorrow you need to begin making arrangements. I can't believe you're doing this to us, my father said, his voice hollow. I can't believe what you did to me, I countered. Taking my money was bad enough, but excluding me from a family vacation, replacing me with Megan's friend. Do you have any idea how much that hurt? For the first time, I saw a flicker of genuine remorse in my father's eyes. We didn't think of it that way. That's the problem, Dad. You didn't think about me at all. An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. My family sat looking shell-shocked, the reality of their situation slowly sinking in. My father clutched the eviction notice, my mother dabbed at her tears, and Megan stared at the floor for once without her phone. So what now? My father finally asked, his voice subdued. Now you face the consequences of your actions, Grandpa replied. You find a place to live, you repay Sarah's money, and you start making better choices. And what about you, Sarah? My mother looked at me, her expression a mix of hurt and confusion. Do you hate us now? The question caught me off guard. I don't hate you, Mum. I'm deeply hurt and disappointed, but I don't hate you. I just need you to understand what you did and take responsibility for it. We're still family, Grandpa added. That hasn't changed. But family means respect and consideration for each other, not just taking what you want because you can. My father stood up again, this time more slowly. I need some air. This is a lot to process. Take all the time you need, Grandpa replied. But the decisions have been made. As my father walked out onto the porch, my mother and Megan remained seated, looking lost and uncertain. I felt a complicated mixture of emotion, satisfaction that justice was being served, but also sadness at the fracture in our once close family. Grandpa caught my eye and nodded slightly, a silent acknowledgement that we'd done what needed to be done. It wasn't about revenge, it was about accountability and establishing boundaries. My family had betrayed my trust in a profound way, and now they were facing the natural consequences of their actions. Whatever happened next would be up to them. Morning light filtered through the kitchen blinds as I sipped my coffee, listening to the sounds of my family stirring upstairs. After the confrontation last night, they'd retreated to their bedrooms, shocked and subdued. No one had much appetite for dinner, and conversation had been minimal. Grandpa joined me at the table, looking remarkably well-rested for someone who had just dramatically altered his family's trajectory. How are you feeling? He asked, pouring himself coffee. Conflicted, I admitted. Part of me feels terrible for them, but another part feels, vindicated. Both feelings are natural, Grandpa assured me. This isn't easy for any of us. Heavy footsteps on the stairs announced my father's arrival. He appeared in the doorway unshaven and tired-looking, as though he hadn't slept well. Without a word, he poured himself coffee and sat across from us. After a long silence, he finally spoke. "I've been up most of the night thinking about everything." "And," Grandpa prompted, "and I can see how we went wrong." He stared into his coffee cup, avoiding our eyes. "It wasn't one big decision. It was a series of small ones, each taking us further from who we used to be." I waited, unsure whether to believe this apparent insight. "The promotion changed things," he continued. "Suddenly, we were in a different social circle. Helen wanted to keep up with the other executives' wives. I wanted to impress my boss. We started spending more, caring more about appearances." "And Megan?" I asked. "She's a teenager. She adapted to the lifestyle we created." He finally looked up, meeting my eyes. "I'm not making excuses. What we did to you was wrong. Terribly wrong. I didn't see it that way at the time." "How could you not see that taking my graduate school money was wrong?" I pressed, needing to understand. He shook his head slowly. "I told myself it was still family money, just being used for the family. I convinced myself you wouldn't mind, because you're good with money and could save it again." He grimaced. "It sounds so selfish saying it out loud." "It was selfish," I agreed, but without the anger I'd felt yesterday. "And hurtful." My mother appeared in the doorway, looking equally exhausted. Megan trailed behind her for once, without her usual teenage attitude. "I've been calling around," my mother said quietly. "My sister Joan said we can stay with her while we look for a place." Aunt Joan lived in a modest townhouse about 30 minutes away. It would be cramped with 3 additional people, but it was a solution. "That's good," Grandpa nodded. "When will you go?" "Today, if that's all right. I think we all need some space." Megan finally spoke up, her voice smaller than I'd heard it in years. "Are you really selling the house, Grandpa?" Grandpa considered her question. "I'm reclaiming it. What I do with it afterward depends on many things." "Will you live here?" she pressed. "Perhaps. Or perhaps Sarah might want to move back to Rochester for her graduate studies." I hadn't considered that possibility. The thought of living in my childhood home while pursuing my master's degree had a certain appeal, especially with Grandpa as a housemate. My father cleared his throat. "About Sarah's money, we will pay it back. I'll talk to the bank about a personal loan today." "Good," Grandpa said simply. "And I've been thinking about what you said about the trust conditions." My father fidgeted with his coffee cup. "The financial counseling, I think that would actually be helpful. We've clearly lost our way with money." My mother nodded in agreement. "And I've been considering going back to nursing. Not full-time, but maybe part-time at the community clinic. I miss feeling useful." These small concessions felt like the first genuine steps toward amends. I wasn't ready to fully forgive, but I could acknowledge their efforts. "I'm going to pack our things," my mother said, standing up. "Joan's expecting us by afternoon." As she and Megan left the kitchen, my father lingered. "Sarah, can we talk privately?" I glanced at Grandpa, who nodded and excused himself. Once we were alone, my father moved to the chair beside me. "I owe you a deeper apology," he began. "What we did wasn't just about the money. It was about excluding you from the family. I don't even know when we started thinking of you as separate, as not really part of us anymore." "I noticed it before this," I admitted. "The last few times I visited, everything was about Megan's activities and your work. No one asked much about my life in Seattle." He winced. "You're right. We've been self-absorbed. And taking your money, planning a vacation without you." He shook his head. "It's unforgivable." "I wouldn't say unforgivable," I said carefully, "but it's definitely damaged my trust. That will take time to rebuild." "I understand." He hesitated, then added, "I want you to know that I'm proud of you. For standing up for yourself, for working hard for your degree, for being the kind of person who saves for their future, instead of blowing money on frivolous things. Somewhere along the way, I lost sight of the values I was supposed to be teaching you. For the first time since discovering their betrayal, I felt a glimmer of hope that our relationship might eventually heal, not immediately, not without work, but someday." "Thank you for saying that," I said. "It means a lot." He reached across the table, tentatively placing his hand on mine. "Your grandfather is right to hold us accountable. I just wish it hadn't come to this, for me to see what we were becoming." The rest of the morning passed in a blur of activity as my parents and Megan packed essentials for their stay at Aunt Joan's. The atmosphere was solemn, but not hostile. Reality had set in, and they seemed to be accepting the consequences of their actions. Just before they left, Megan approached me on the porch while our parents loaded the car. "I'm sorry," she said, looking younger and more vulnerable than she had in years. "For what it's worth, I did ask if you could come on the trip. Dad said you were too busy with your teaching job." This small revelation stung, but I appreciated her honesty. "Thanks for telling me that. Are we going to be okay?" she asked, uncertainty in her eyes. "As a family, I mean." I put an arm around her shoulders, remembering the little girl who used to follow me everywhere. "We will be. It'll take time and effort from everyone, but we'll get there." As they drove away toward Aunt Joan's house, Grandpa and I stood on the porch, watching until their car disappeared around the corner. "Do you think they've really learnt their lesson?" I asked. "Time will tell," Grandpa replied wisely. "Real change doesn't happen overnight, but I believe they want to try, and that's a start." We went back inside to the suddenly quiet house that had been the centre of so much turmoil over the past week. Despite everything, I felt a sense of peace settling over me. My graduate school funds were secure, boundaries had been established, and most importantly, I'd found my voice. "What happens now?" I asked Grandpa as we settled in the living room. "Now, he said with a small smile, "we heal, all of us in our own ways, and we rebuild hopefully on a stronger foundation." I nodded, understanding that this painful chapter in our family story wasn't just an ending, but also a beginning. A chance to create healthier relationships based on mutual respect, rather than convenience or obligation. "Thank you," I said, squeezing Grandpa's hand. "For everything." "No need for thanks, Sarah. Family stands up for each other. That's what your grandmother and I always believed." His eyes twinkled. "And she would have been mighty proud of you these past few days." In that moment, surrounded by the warmth of my grandfather's unconditional love, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, I would face them with new strength and clarity. The betrayal had hurt deeply, but it had also freed me from illusions and taught me invaluable lessons about standing up for myself. Some family bonds had been strained, others strengthened, and I had discovered a resilience within myself that I never knew existed. 3 months passed more quickly than I expected. Winter melted into early spring, bringing with it new beginnings in more ways than one. I'd extended my leave of absence from my teaching job in Seattle to stay in Rochester through the end of the school year, living with Grandpa in what was now truly his house again. The day was mild for March in upstate New York as I drove to meet my parents for lunch. They'd been staying at Aunt Joan's all this time, though they had recently signed a lease on a modest apartment closer to my father's work. As I parked outside the restaurant, I reflected on the changes of the past months. True to their word, my parents had followed through on the conditions Grandpa had set. My father had completed a financial responsibility course and met weekly with a financial advisor to restructure their finances. My mother had returned to nursing 3 days a week at a community health clinic, finding purpose in helping others again. Even Megan had shown growth, bringing her grades up and volunteering at an animal shelter on weekends. The attitude was still there occasionally, but tempered by a new awareness of consequences. Inside the restaurant, I found my parents already seated at a table. My mother waved me over her smile, genuine, but tinged with the slight nervousness that had characterized our interactions since Thanksgiving. "Sarah, you look wonderful," she said, standing to hug me. "Thanks, Mom. You too." And she did. Her face had lost the tense appearance-conscious look she'd developed over recent years. My father stood as well, our greeting still slightly awkward but warming. "How's Grandpa today?" "Good. Working in the garden already, if you can believe it. Says it's never too early to prepare the soil." We settled into our seats, the initial pleasantries giving way to more substantive conversation. "We have something for you," my father said, reaching into his jacket pocket. He withdrew an envelope and slid it across the table. I opened it to find a cashier's check for $7,000, the exact amount they had taken from my account. "We wanted to give this to you in person," my mother explained. "It's the full amount plus interest." "Thank you," I said, genuinely touched by the gesture. "Grandpa's money from the Mustang is already in my graduate school fund, so I'll put this toward my first semester's living expenses." "That sounds sensible," my father nodded. "When do you start classes?" "Fall semester. I've been accepted at the University of Rochester. I'll be living with Grandpa and commuting to campus." "That's wonderful news," my mother said warmly. "I'm so proud of you." We ordered lunch, and as we waited for our food, my father broached a topic I knew had been on his mind. "Your grandfather has offered to sell us the house," he said, "at a fair market price with a proper mortgage through the bank this time." This was news to me. Are you considering it? My father exchanged glances with my mother. We are, but we're being very careful about the decision. The financial counselling has really opened my eyes to how much house we can actually afford. We've learnt to live more simply these past months, my mother added. And honestly, it's been freeing. All that keeping up with appearances was exhausting. So you might not take Grandpa's offer? I asked. We're still discussing it, my father said. The apartment is working well for now. It's helping us save and get our finances in order. Megan misses the house though, my mother admitted. She asks about her room all the time. She's welcome to visit, I assured them. Grandpa has said that from the beginning. Our food arrived momentarily, pausing the conversation. As we ate, I observed the subtle changes in my parents. There was less focus on status, more authenticity in their interactions. The betrayal still lingered between us, but healing had definitely begun. I've been thinking a lot about Thanksgiving, my father said suddenly, about how badly we hurt you. I set down my fork, giving him my full attention. It wasn't just taking the money, he continued. It was the message it sent that you weren't important to us, that we didn't value your dreams or include you in the family anymore. He met my eyes directly. I want you to know that I understand that now, and I'm truly sorry. We both are, my mother added, reaching for my hand across the table. We lost sight of what really matters. Success isn't about vacations or possessions. It's about the people we love. I appreciate that, I said sincerely, and I'm grateful you've both been willing to make real changes. Grandpa's tough love approach was exactly what we needed, my father acknowledged. I was angry at first, but he was right. Listen, after lunch, as we walked to our cars, my mother mentioned that they were hosting a small dinner that weekend. Nothing fancy, just family. We'd love for you and Grandpa to come. I'll check with him, but I'm sure we'd be happy to, I replied. As I hugged them goodbye, I felt the distance between us had narrowed. Not completely closed, but significantly reduced. Trust was being rebuilt, one conversation, one action at a time. Back at home, I found Grandpa exactly where I expected in the garden, working the soil for spring planting. I joined him kneeling on the ground to help pull early weeds. How was lunch? He asked, wiping his brow. Good, really good actually. I told him about the check, the dinner invitation, and their consideration of his offer to sell them the house. He nodded thoughtfully. They're making progress, real progress, not just saying what they think I want to hear. They mentioned the financial counselling has been eye-opening for Dad. That's what I hoped. Robert's not a bad person, just got caught up in appearances and forgot what truly matters. Grandpa sat back on his gardening stool. Your grandmother always said money is a good servant, but a terrible master. Wise woman, Grandma. I smiled. That she was. Grandpa's eyes twinkled. And speaking of wisdom, I've been thinking about the future of this house. Dad mentioned you offered to sell it to them. I did at a fair price, but I've also been considering another option. He looked at me directly. How would you feel about me putting the house in your name after you complete your master's degree? The suggestion caught me completely off guard. Grandpa, I couldn't possibly... He raised a hand to stop my protests. You've proven yourself responsible and thoughtful, and more importantly, you understand that a house is more than just property. It's a home, a place for family to gather and grow. What about Mum and Dad and Megan? They'll have their chance to buy a home that fits their needs and their budget. This house could be yours to continue the family legacy, perhaps raise your own family here someday. The possibility was overwhelming, bringing tears to my eyes. I don't know what to say. You don't need to decide anything now, Grandpa assured me. Just something to consider for the future. We returned to our gardening, working side by side in comfortable silence. As my hands worked the soil, my mind processed everything that had happened since that fateful Thanksgiving day. I'd arrived home, expecting the warm embrace of family tradition, only to discover betrayal and exclusion. The pain had been profound, but so had the growth that followed. I'd found my voice, set boundaries, and discovered a strength within myself I hadn't known existed. My family was changing, healing, rebuilding. Not returning to what was before, but evolving into something potentially healthier and more authentic. The journey wasn't over. We all had more work to do, but we were on a better path. As the afternoon sun warmed my back, I felt a deep sense of gratitude for my grandfather's wisdom and courage. He hadn't just protected me. He'd created an opportunity for our entire family to transform a painful betrayal into a catalyst for positive change. Some lessons come at a high emotional cost, but their value is immeasurable. I'd learnt that family love should never be taken for granted, that standing up for yourself isn't selfish, but necessary, and that true healing begins with accountability. These weren't easy lessons, but they were ones I would carry forward, making me not just a better daughter, sister, and granddaughter, but a stronger person, prepared to face whatever challenges life might bring next. What do you think about this story? Have you ever experienced a betrayal from someone close to you? How did you handle it? Let me know in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and share this video with someone who might need to hear that standing up for yourself is an act of self-love. Thank you for listening, and remember, sometimes the most painful experiences lead to our greatest growth.